So one thing I want to try to do for coaches a little better this year is explain some of our tactics in advance for coaches who want to engage with that. By no means is anyone required to do homework or engage with this. This is just for coaches who are curious about what we'll be covering this season and in our sessions. I try to have what I call cone chats with players during most sessions where I can break down small parts of this without talking for 15 minutes at a time. So I think the most important part is to understand how we reference a soccer pitch. So soccer pitches are divided into 3 vertical components. These are called channels. So we have a left channel, a center channel, and a right channel. A soccer pitch is also divided into horizontal thirds. So we have a defensive third, we have a middle third, and then we have an attacking third. So we'll be referring to channels and thirds quite a bit when we're talking about the space on a field, but we're also going to try to keep it as simple as possible, especially at younger age groups. So for a 9v9 age group, we'll be talking through definitely channels and thirds, but we might not get more nuanced with zones, for instance, or half spaces, which would be more appropriate for 11v11 game development. For 11v11s, we may also talk about the space between the channels. So this space here and this space here, those are called the half spaces. Those are key for the movement of certain players and the interchanging of certain positions. Again, more advanced, we may or may not get to that, but just pointing out what those areas are. And we also might think of a soccer pitch as divided into zones, which I'll show in a moment. I may reference zones at some point, especially for our 11v11 teams. If I do, I will just focus on a few zones. This is really more coach-to-coach information than it is coach-to-player information. But sometimes it's helpful for coaches to understand that we might further divide up a pitch into zones with 9 in each half. So in our defensive half with our goalkeeper, we have zones 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, 7, 8, and 9 being closer to midfield. Then we get to midfield and we get into our attacking half where we have zones 10 through 12, 13 through 15, and 16 through 18. We don't have enough time to focus on player movement between each one of these zones, nor would I expect coaches to pick any of that up. But you may hear me at times giving instructions like we cannot allow shots from the opponent in zones 2 or 5. So we're always having a defender who's stepping to block shots in zones 2 or 5 in our defensive half. Or conversely, you might hear me talking about the buildup between zones 14 and 17, where we might be looking for someone like a 9 to lay off to a 10 to bring them into 17 to give us more numbers in the box. So chances are if I discuss zones at any point, I'll really just focus on zones 2 and 5, and zones 14 and 17 is the most important attacking and defending zones. But I probably won't get nuanced if I even mention them at all. So for the 11v11 game, there's a lot of different formations we can play. And ultimately as a coach, you'll choose the one that best fits the strengths of your team. So by no means, if I model the one I'm going to model, does that mean that is the formation that you have to play? You should understand your team and then play to their strengths. But I'm going to model a formation that I'm going to be teaching this season. It's one that I've used in previous seasons as well. As I do, I'm going to use these numbers. So why do we use the number system? It's so that we can very quickly give instructions that translate across multiple levels and teams. Because the problem is, in the old days when I played soccer, if you played that position, you might have been called an outside back. But that might also be a wing back. But that might also be a right back. That might be a right half back, I've heard, or right full back coaches use, which aren't quite the right terminology. But either way, the fact that there's 5 or 6 different names for that position is problematic. So if we can just say a number like 2, we understand, hey, you were defensively oriented and you're on the right side of the pitch. Great, you're a 2, and we can give further instructions from there. So the model that we'll use is going to have a back 4. So we'll have a 4 and a 5, but we have a right center back who's a 4, a left center back who's a 5. We have a right back who's a 2. We have a left back who's a 3. I like to, when I model these shapes, model a shape that assumes we have the ball, so we're in possession, which is going to show our 2 and our 3 a little bit wider, because as the ball moves wide, I want those positions moving into the attack to give us numbers, and the other positions balancing us out behind, right? But we'll start from the back, keep it simple for now, just talk through our actual numbers here. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna model 4 in the back, and then we'll model 3 in the midfield. So I like to play where I can a shape that looks like this. I don't have 2 number 10s, so I will show you an 8 and a 10, assuming they're both attacking mids here. Now in a 4-3-3, so we have 4 in the back, we have 3 midfielders, and we'll add 2 attackers to this in a moment. You might play a true 4-3-3 where an 8 plays between a 6 and a 10, but the idea is that we always have a triangle. So whether you're playing 2 6s and a 10, whether you're doing what I do, which is play a single pivot, so we have 2 10s and a 6, which is a more attacking team shape. We want to have a triangle when we have 3 so that we have number superiority in this central midfield when we play this particular formation. Now, we'll add on to that a left wing who's an 11, a right wing who's a 7, and a center forward who's a 9. I'll be here to help with these. I don't expect coaches memorize these off the bat, but hopefully just kind of better models what we're going to be demonstrating from the start this season. So again, team shapes are dynamic. We might get more numbers going forward. So for instance, we'll work on what we do if, we'll say, in this case, 4 plays a 10, plays a 6, and then maybe we have a rotation that brings the 2 up, and now we're attacking with more numbers going forward, which is going to be a key for our 11v11 instruction this season. So there's a lot of different patterns we can consider, but generally, what we want to know is how many we have in the back line, how many we have in the midfield, and how many we have in the attack up top. The objective is always to recover numbers back when we're out of possession. So if the opponent's number 8, for instance, is in possession of the ball, we want to be engaging and surrounding from our central midfield while recovering some of our numbers back and keeping our number 9 highest in this formation. But if we're in possession of the ball and we're trying to break down the opponent, and let's say they have their center backs and their back line set similarly, so they're going to be in a good position to pick up this 9 and not be able to let the 9 break them down, we want to be getting numbers forward in the attack. So a 9 can maybe lay off to one of our central midfielders, but we can start to advance these numbers forward and look for diagonal passes, which could maybe bring more numbers into the attack and get more numbers into the box that way. So we'll talk through the nuances of that each week, but starts by just understanding, again, what does our team shape look like out of, or in possession rather, and how can we add instructions for players within those roles. So the team shape you'll see us use more often this season when I'm instructing is a 4-3-3 with 4 defenders, 3 central midfielders, and 3 forwards.